In the summer of 1972, my family and my best friend's family took an extreme camping trip on the shores of Long Island. And it takes us an entire day to get to our campsite. And by the end of that day, we were completely set up. And for the next 2 weeks, it was like Swiss Family Robinson meets Lord of the Flies. Now, my father and my Uncle Bill chose not to go to the designated camping area because there was no adventure in that. And so we were in a camping area where there were no rules. At night, we would fall into our smelly tents, and we would just gently fall asleep to the sound of our parents talking around the campfire, punctuated with these bursts of hysterical laughter. It was the kind of laughter you only hear when you're with people that you truly love. And they're kind of drunk. So the thing that we didn't know was that right around the corner from this remote peninsula was a bar. And so every night before the campfire, the fathers would look at the mothers and say, "We're going to go blow the gas out of the lines." And they would jump in the boats and take off. And they'd come back an hour later really happy to see us. So on this one particular night, the mothers looked at the fathers and said, "We are going to go blow the gas out of the lines. You will be in charge of the children." Now, I will tell you that all 6 of the children are still alive, and that our fathers were wonderful fathers. And like most fathers in the 60s and 70s, they had this little voice in their head when they were left alone with the children that said, "Don't do this. It could end badly." But when you left my father and my Uncle Bill together in charge of the children, that sentence changed to the question, what's the worst that could happen? And so the mothers go off to blow the gas out of the lines, and they look at the children and say, "You will collect the wood." And we say, "Yes, fathers," because we know something incredible is going to happen. And we scurry off down the beach, and we come back with the 2 kinds of wood that children can collect, which are tiny little twigs that burn in 11 seconds and giant water-soaked tree trunks. And we throw them into the fire pit. And the fathers look at them and they say, "That is wonderful," because they don't want to shame or judge us. That was really the mother's territory, and they left that to them. And so my father goes to light a match, and of course this wood won't light. And at some point my brother says, "Why don't we dump some gas on it?" And my father starts to say, "I don't think that's a good," and my uncle says, "That's a great idea. What's the worst that could happen?" So we dump a couple of gallons of fuel into the fire pit. My father lights a match, he throws it in, nothing happens. My brother starts to say, "I think we need more," and my father leans over the fire pit, and in that moment, an explosion licks up to the heavens. There are flames 30 feet in the air. There's a mushroom cloud that forms that blows him back and singes off his eyebrows. My Uncle Bill runs over and says, "That was close." My father says, "I know, right?" And when they compose themselves and they look up and they look to the children to see if we're all right, and the children are screaming at this point, "This is great! We love the fathers!" Now, you couldn't actually see this blast from space, but you could see it from the shores of Connecticut, because the Bridgeport police contact the Harbor Patrol and dispatch every Coast Guard boat in the Long Island Sound toward the peninsula. The other place you could see this blast was the bar, where the mothers were blowing the gas out of the lines. And so simultaneously, the Coast Guard and the mothers are now charging towards the beachhead. And I can see my mother's face, and it's that look that's very familiar for mothers in the 60s and 70s, which on one end is that deep, deep concern for your children, and on the other side is just this unbelievable rage. I looked at my father and I said, "I have always loved you. And I am gonna miss you so much." The Coast Guard get to the beach, they set up a perimeter, the mothers break through. Instantly, the mothers banish us to our smelly tent. And we shuffle off once again, saying, "We love the fathers." We can hear the negotiation from the tent. The Coast Guard agrees to let us spend the night if we promise to move to the designated camping area the next day. The mothers agree that they won't kill the fathers in their sleep. And the fathers agree that the fatal flaw in their plan was allowing the children to collect the wood. So the next morning, 2 mothers, 2 fathers, and 6 children load 4,000 pounds of camping gear back into the boats, and we head to the designated camping area. And we spend the rest of our vacation waiting on the shore with the other children a half an hour to go in and swim after lunch. And at night, sitting around the tiniest of fires, encased in a Coast Guard-approved metal ring, looking longingly at the fathers, thinking, will the mothers ever get desperate enough to leave us alone with you again? The last adventure that we had together with the fathers was 10 years ago. My uncle had passed away after a very long struggle with lung cancer. And 7 weeks later, when my father passed away completely unexpectedly, the children determined that his cause of death was likely a broken heart. We had my Uncle Bill cremated in Florida, where he had gone to live with my best friend. My father was cremated in Vermont, where he had come to live with me. And we brought their ashes back to Long Island. We placed them together in a box, and we brought them down to the Long Island Sound. We doused it with lighter fluid. We set them on fire, and we sent them out. We hadn't really accounted for the tide or the wind. And so as the flaming box of our fathers picked up speed, it made its way past the Coast Guard station. As the Coast Guard went to jump in their boats to investigate, on the second pass around, the box got swamped. And as they started to sink slowly down before the Coast Guard could get to it, I swear I could hear my father say, "That was close." My Uncle Bill say, "I know, right?" And for that one brief moment, our grief just parted, because we knew whatever the adventure was, they were going to be there together. And I know that no one could hear that, but if you were in a mile of the shoreline that day, you could absolutely hear the triumphant cries of the 6 children on the shore screaming, "We love the fathers!" Thank you.